like and subscribe. Now. What screams rich a-hole? My uncle, who was an incredibly successful heart surgeon at the time, once took me to a show in downtown Austin. When we got to the venue, there was nowhere to park. He rolled up to an area that had yellow stripes everywhere and big no parking signs. I pointed out that we can't park there, but he just replied, nah, it just costs $400 something to park here. I do it all the time. They won't tow a pork. He was right. They didn't tow his car and just gave him a ticket. My sister works at a fancy private school, and she tells me rich a-hole stories all the time. I think the worst though is this one student who is a foreign student that is literally a princess from a royal family in a country that I won't name for privacy reasons. But she demands that the staff address her as royalty and demands students at the school be forced to treat her respectfully. My sister also told me that a trend has happened throughout the school where students will reference each other with royal monikers like Your Highness or My Lord to piss her off, because if everyone is addressed like royalty, then in the end it means nothing anymore. Having mommy daddy throw enough money around to make problems go away and get what you wanted in the end. Guy I knew growing up, and then we ended up at same college. His dad was some bigwig real estate guy. Mom was a heiress to well-known brand. He was very status conscious and knew he could always buy way out of trouble. Always some shady, borderline illegal scheme to make more money. Usually so he could buy himself a Rolex or Anyway, our university was pretty elite, but he wanted to go to the best in his area of study, so he planned to transfer. He got like a 3.98 GPA. Couldn't buy off a pet teacher to get an A, but because he was an entitled jerk couldn't get professors willing to write letters of recommendation. So he forged one, mailed it out, but forgot postage, and got discovered. When it went returned to send it to a professor who hadn't written it, his parents flew down, made a giant donation to our school, and the administration didn't inform his intended university of his stunt. He got in. He left our school, got his best degree, and last I heard, was working on Wall Street. I'm always amazed he hasn't ended up in prison for some sort of white collar makes me sick. My friend went to a rich kid's school, wasn't rich herself, got in on scholarship, but she has the craziest spoiled rich kid stories. One of them is when she overheard a girl complaining about her family going to Italy for the summer because she wanted to go back to Spain. She was on the verge of tears about how she never gets what she wants. Mine was the girl in my high school who was upset because daddy bought her a brand new BMW 3 Series, and she was upset because she wanted a Land Rover. Ended up crashing the car and got her Land Rover after all. Whoa, I'd be happy with a refined Corolla. Had a girl in my college whose father sold a cybersecurity startup to a major company everyone has heard of for 9 figures. She got a $30k monthly allowance. I dated someone who legitimately complained about her parents only giving her a $2k per month allowance. I later realized that they bought her house and car outright and paid for her utilities. The $2k was food and spending money. It blew my mind. Then I realized I had paid for our date. WTF. I have a doctor customer who owes me money. Man got the nerve to have 3 personal luxury vehicles, lives alone, but can't cut me a check when I come to service his house. I taught private swim lessons for a while in a wealthy region of Georgia. The price for a 2-week session of classes was $150 per child. I usually had the parents prepay each 2-week session prior to the first class. One client was the town doctor. She was the only general practice office in that area and was well known amongst the summertime at the lake house crowd. Anyway, she forgot cash to pay and offered me a check, but I didn't like accepting checks. I told her to bring it for the next class. She forgot again. At that point I thought to myself, well, she's a doctor. She's just forgetful in her personal life. At the 3rd class, I asked her to run into town while class was going on, and I sidelined her son until she got back. So she comes out and says, oh, we were talking, and I didn't get a chance to go to the ATM. Finally I accepted her check. It bounced. I had to drive all the way back up there and go to her bank. I forgot what it's called, but I submitted the check to the bank to be paid out as soon as enough funds hit the account. The problem is, she had been dribbling checks all over the place and I basically had to wait my turn. It took 3 months. to be paid $150. 3 months. From that I learned, if you make $100K per year and have $101K worth of bills and debt, you're broke. Point blank period. BTW. I had to put her son out of the class with all of his little friends. Some of the other parents complained that I was being too strict, so I offered for them to pony out $17 each to pay for little Chase's lessons. No one wanted to do that. Funny, they want you to eat the whole thing, but they don't even want to pay a tenth of that. Lol. This is just insane to me. Pay your damn bills. We try to use local people for everything, and I make sure they get their money ASAP. There is no reason to take your time paying someone for the work they did, unless dude doesn't have the money he is trying to portray he does, which is a huge possibility too. That's not rich. That's called carpool. Overextending credit. Low cash flow. A shocking number of rich people are poor. Living beyond your means happens across all class boundaries. I used to be a wedding photographer and the only check I ever had bounce was for the wealthiest customer I ever had. They couldn't get together $1,900 to pay me for 7 months, even though they made over $200K/year in a low cost of living region. Fancy house, fancy cars, empty bank accounts, a Canada Goose coat. When you live in Florida, I'm totally not referencing anybody right now. Do you know who I am? No B. I don't and I don't care. GTFO. I worked door at a club for a while and got this several times a night for years. Half the time I knew exactly who they were. I was acting on explicit instructions regarding them. That's so funny. I'm sure it would be hard for you to do dialogue with the noise level around you. But, yes I do. You're Jim Smith. And last Saturday night you sucker punched another patron and threw a table when we kicked you out. Would be great. You can't leave us hanging like that. Please tell me the instructions were something like, tell this dude he can only enter if you are allowed to punch him in the face. There is, hopefully not an urban legend, story about someone doing the do you know who I am angrily at a gate agent at an airport. The gate agent picks up the PA mic and announces customer service to gate 17. I have a gentleman here who doesn't know who he is. You left out a lot of that story / urban legend / joke. For context, the whole thing involves a long line of customers waiting to be rebooked after a cancelled flight, and one poor gate agent having to rebook them all. Customer attempts to cut the line and is a jerk about what he wants. The parent post happens. Then, customer, you. Gate agent, sorry, you'll have to stand in line for that too. I worked at an arena for an NHL team, and the local WHL team played there, too. WHL team could pull 5,000 people on a good night, and I think the players got paid maybe $150 a week or something. All teenagers 15 to 17 or so. This WHL team with Shin always lost. So it's not like it was full of future stars. One day I was taking tickets for a WHL game and this teenage girl comes up, dressed nice and wearing expensive clothes, but didn't have a ticket. When I said she couldn't go in, she dropped that line on me. Don't you know who I am? I said no, and she said she was the team captain's girlfriend. I said that maybe she could go to a different gate, where there was a concierge desk where people left tickets in such situations. She left. I thought to myself, B, if you don't already know where the special entrance is, and if you don't already have a ticket in hand, maybe you aren't as special as you think you are. I worked for a WHL team last year and those teenagers walk around like they are movie stars, and that's when she realized she was not the girlfriend, but the side piece. Had a rich guy ask me once what my favorite brand of water was. Oh, great value. There's no punishment. I just pay $200 if I get caught. Police in London had a huge problem with this when super rich Arabs would come to London for the summer and park their expensive supercars anywhere they liked, even if it wasn't legal or safe. Then when police or parking inspectors etc came along and told them to move the car or be fined, they'd just casually pay a fine of hundreds of pounds on the spot and walk away. The police had to show them it was an actual crime before some of them stopped. You guys don't tow. In Geneva they had problems with Russians parking in illegal or dangerous spots due to their license plates being written in Cyrillic. For a long time it was impossible to enter them in the electronic system. I was dining at restaurant opposite Harrods once. This Arab came in with a model and he parked his supercar out front. The traffic wardens came to say they are putting tickets on the car. The Arab said yeah whatever, it's a flex for them to on dates. Any law where the punishment is a fine. It's a law for poor people only. Finland takes a percentage of income for fines. F1 driver Raikkonen had to pay something like €30 for not having the necessary paperwork for his car available. Still not gonna stop some billionaire, but at least it's not just £200 or something equally minuscule. Many rich people don't treat the fines as punishment, but rather as how much it costs to do it. In theory, it is the correct approach to take. From a capitalist standpoint, they should make major repeat offenses cost a bomb. When I had trouble paying for college, my aunt suggested I use financial aid and proceeds to tell me how they had to lie about their income and where their daughter was staying to get it. And on the application they listed her trip to the Bahamas as mission work. They laughed because their daughter couldn't even stand to look at those dirty children, but they wrote it up like she was teaching them the Bible. Wow, that is really an a-hole move. It's also fraud. Till I hate people more than I thought. The CEO of the non-profit hospital I work for won't give us a covered bonus, but he got over a $4 million bonus. First thing that comes to mind is this. I was in middle school, and a group of kids were hanging out, and I knew 2 of them, so I went to talk to them. Girl drops her phone intentionally. It was an iPhone 8, and at the time it was the newest thing. Brand new phone too. She threw it on the ground again on the linoleum floor. The phone screen cracked. After that I asked why she did that. Because those are super expensive. She said it didn't matter because her mom would just buy her a new one. Maybe I'm a dumbass, but why would she drop her phone intentionally? Just for fun. She was probably wanting her parents' attention and the only way she knew to get it was to make them spend money. Me. 2 nights ago, 3 a-holes came in to eat at the restaurant I work at, more than an hour late for their reservation and roughly 75 minutes before we were legally required by the city to kick them out. COVID curfews are still in effect. If you get caught you risk losing your liquor license. When we dropped the check and explained the situation, they screamed that it was unacceptable because they had spent so much money with us. Guess what? Other people spent more than you that same night and they were on time. We are not interested in risking a whole business and a few dozen people's jobs because you can't tell time and think that the world is going to stop for you. I used to do character day party gigs in La. Those who were middle class or less would always tip me too much, feed me too much, and I would meet everyone and their family. When I worked the elite in Beverly Hills or Pacific Palisades mansions, I would never meet the parents. They wouldn't be at the party. I would be wandering around the party as Darth Vader or Batman, mostly blind, asking people where the parents were so I could get paid and get going, only for the butler to take me aside and hand me an envelope with exact change of how much they owed me whenever I hear Jodestein's name mentioned. Just wait till you hear from my lawyer. Do you even know who my dad is? Do you know who I am? Do you know who my family is? I'm Ronnie F. Pickering. I live in an area a lot of rich New Yorkers fled to when the pandemic started. One of them actually used the "do you know who I am" line on me. It was so satisfying to say no. Okay, so I have a story for this one. In college there was a guy on my team who was a pretty nice kid overall, but was clearly brought up with more money than sense. One night we are walking home faced from a party, and he thinks it would be funny to steal a parking cone. I'm in no position to judge, because I had done the same not too long before, but I was a little more subtle. He then also decides he wants to steal a parking barrier. Like why? So he's carrying these 2 enormous neon orange items, and with 100 yards to his apartment, campus police pulls up on us. My friend drops them and keeps walking, as if they'll think someone else must have left these things here, and not those 2 guys who are here alone at 3 a.m. Cops tell him to go get the stuff, because they're gonna drive him back to where he took it from. Our campus police were very chill. Good deal, right? Well, this kid starts with "my dad is a lawyer," which means I know the law, and I'm not getting in that car without probable cause for arrest. These guys are dumbfounded, because they were giving him the easy way out. So one of them goes, "I could have you on stolen property and arrest you." I'm offering to help. What do you want to do? I wish I could say the kid was smart and just stopped. Nope, he kept at it. He ended up getting multiple tickets and was kicked off campus for behavioral issues. Thankfully he's doing much better now, though he's still a bit of a rich prick, just more subtle about it. Expecting special treatment by default. Store employees. Bus/club/restaurants. Cutting to the front of lineups. Being confused why someone doesn't just replace something that's getting worn. That is, shoes, old phone models, gaming consoles, house repairs/decor. Kids who complain when their parents buy them their first car. Yes, I hate in movies when teenagers complain about being given their mum's minivan. My first car was my mom's minivan, and it was the best vehicle to drive my mates around in. I camped in it a few times, went to foreign lands. Minivans are great when you're 18 to 25. I have literally never seen this, except in movies or internet rage videos, the latter which are usually faked. Brings me back to MTV's My Super Sweet 16. I went to a private school with a lot of rich offspring. Yeah. They weren't complaining about it. Some of them did have a certain level of expectation about it. Some of them did do the crash that one. Thank God for a replacement thing. I can do illegal things and the government will side with me. Brock Turner the Arpist, this is his defense strategy. And his little dad, too. Wasn't there a video of some guy that got choked out after headbutting a waiter? That video just screams rich a-hole. My father will hear about this. Gets turned into a ferret. 2 parking spot parkers. I'll raise you a 4-spot wanker I had at work yesterday. Think 2 rows of parks. Yeah. Parked over the common point of all 4. I had a ridiculously rich landlord once. Owned who knows how many houses. Enough acreage to make a large US county. And a plane. Tried to complain to me because I, the person paying rent, wasn't doing anything to improve his effing house that I was paying him to live in. B. It's your house. You improve it. Privileged a-hole. 100k diamond butt plug. That's one rich a-hole I wish I had. My dad when the guy in the BMW cuts him off. My dad always goes BMW. The #1 transporter for a-holes, in his best advertisement voice. Fun story. A few years ago my brother-in-law was buying a new car. He'd narrowed it down to an Audi or a BMW. Went to a gathering at his dad's house. A person present told a joke. What's the difference between a porcupine and a BMW? Porcupine has the pricks on the outside. Brother-in-law bought an Audi. For me, Range Rover/Land Rovers are the a-hole transporters. Don't have enough money, just buy stocks. Don't find an apartment to rent, just buy an house. Well, I tried to buy a house. The bank said that I can't afford $1,200 a month for a mortgage, so I paid $2,300 a month for rent instead. OMG, my ex was full of them. Here's a few. Always buying new clothes, shoes, or accessories compulsively because you should be willing to invest in your appearance at all times, which I can agree with to an extent, but not in Burberry. He dropped at least 5k per visit, refusing to eat at a restaurant that is part of a chain, and complaining to the people who are buying you dinner there about it, making fun of the waitstaff too, laughing at homeless people and thinking they're a joke, making fun of people purely based on their attire or car they drive. There's a reason he's my ex now. Being rude to service workers. I had a rich friend in middle school. We would go to a Chick-fil-A after school, and he was rude to the workers. I told him in cashier's earshot that the workers get to your food first. Who knows what they can do to it. Friend had a 180 turnaround to service workers after that. People who answer statements of I wish I had this with just buy it. If I could buy it without being stressed out, wouldn't I have bought it already? Idiot. The one who awards himself platinum through his alt account, but that's a gold. That's not me. Seriously, who has the money to waste on Reddit awards? Seriously. Being handed capital to invest, or a job that was handed to you by your family, and claiming to be self-made. I bought an apple for 10 cents, sold it for 20, so I bought 2, and sold them for 40, then on and on until a relative died, and left me his Fortune 500 company. Light prison sentence. Steve Jobs, co-founder of Apple, you've probably heard of him. He refused to have a license plate on his car, a Mercedes SL55 convertible. California allowed 6 months to get a license plate put on your car. So every 6 months he'd trade in the car for a new lease. And just in case you think that this sounds too ridiculous to be true, I used to work in Silicon Valley and, for a while, at Apple. Steve Wozniak, last I saw about 3 to 4 years ago, drove a white Prius with the license plate was. I remember driving in LA for the first time and being weirded out by how many cars just didn't have plates. What happens if they're hit and run? California now requires that all new cars be sold with temporary plates. I totally remember this. What's funny is that back then I'd heard he was really superstitious about numbers or something and never wanted a plate. I'd assumed he didn't want anyone recognizing his car. Later I was told that it had something to do with his propensity for parking in disabled spots. I'd assumed he didn't want anyone recognizing his car. I would have thought it'd be easier to recognize without plates. Another story about him. After a while, numbered badges were given to Apple employees. Steve Wozniak, the co-founder, got the badge #1. Steve Jobs made a scene refusing the badge #2, and a special badge #0 was created for him. Later, he completely refused to wear the magnetic badge and someone had to escort him everywhere to unlock all the doors. Treating regular folks with little to no regard, particularly those in the service industry, that's not something that rich people do. That's what think they're rich people do. People in $1 million mansions with pools and outdoor space, who, during the lockdown part of the pandemic, pretended to have it just as bad as everyone else. Yes, or the people living in giant houses with massive gardens saying, I really don't understand why everyone is complaining so much about lockdown. Just enjoy the slower pace of life. Meanwhile, the people next door are living in tiny apartments with no outside space, working from the end of their bed. Celebrities, we are all in this together. 3 Also celebrities, I'm just taking a bunch of friends on my private jet to a private island to party. We're all in this together as their personal chef prepares them breakfast and their army of maids, gardeners and pool cleaners rush about the grounds of their palatial estate, throwing rubbish out of the sports car window. Me and my family are Scottish. Tipping isn't much of a thing here. My mother and I aren't very well off at all. We got by, but we never got by easily. On a family holiday to New York for an auntie's wedding, which we couldn't afford, and my gran had to help pay for. My mum and I were working with a backpacker's budget. We didn't eat much fancy or go anywhere expensive. At my aunt's wedding breakfast, we ate the cheapest things we could, since we were all going in on a bill together. There were at least 8+ guests who were seriously high earners, lawyers, a higher up in Facebook, etc. We were expected to pay for their fine extravagant day breakfasts and mimosas. We didn't even have a coffee to save as it was a last day. My mother and I had given so many tips, and we didn't understand how the coins worked, so we just gave all our change to anyone we saw asking. We bought about 8 strangers coffee. You'd think us mugs, but honestly we just wanted to see some people warm up and be somewhere safe for the January morning. 8+ people who make 8 figures a year at least got be-wired my mum and I for demanding they tip the staff. We even made sure to clarify they understood how service staff were paid there compared to home. My future uncle-in-law really hit me with them they ought to get a better job. On top of that, they were just snide and rude to our server because surprise surprise, 10 breakfasts are hard to make in 5 minutes. The server was an angel and I ended up tipping her a 20 when we left as it was all I had spare. I remember explaining to a coworker that I was working 4 jobs at one point. She replied, wow, that sounds complicated. Wouldn't it be easier to just have one full-time job that paid well? I replied, yes. Are you offering one? She suddenly had somewhere else to be. I grew up spoiled AF, and it took me over a decade to deprogram my cluelessness. In my first paid internship, that I didn't need for the money or anything, I got close with the receptionists, who were working women. One of them was talking about her kids and my dumbest self said, oh, are you sure you're okay with sending them to daycare? I grew up with my mom as a housewife, and it was really good to spend so much time with her. I think it helped me get ahead in school. It's one of the things that runs through my head 15 years later, while I'm trying to sleep at night and I remember how much of an idiot I am. A yacht that fits inside another yacht.